Do you think one mind is better than many? Neither do we. A University of Chicago Booth School of Business MBA is for curious and collaborative people who value different perspectives and ideas. Chicago Booth takes pride in empowering and being empowered by women of diverse backgrounds. We believe that fostering an inclusive community creates an environment of analytical, open minded inquiry and produces knowledge with enduring impact. Learn more today at chicagobooth.edu/elevate. Welcome to the Ellevate podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. Hi, everybody. It's Megan. Welcome back to the Ellevate podcast. I am your host. I'm so excited to be here today. So let's go ahead and get to our guest for today. Another one of Maricella's that she interviewed before she left. It's with Jackie Hermes, who is the founder and CEO of Accelity, which helps B2B SaaS companies grow faster with bold sales and marketing processes that actually work, not the push content and say a prayer method that many agencies use. She's also host of the podcast, The Art of Entrepreneurship, where she cuts through the BS and digs into what it actually takes to start and grow a business. Let's go ahead and get to that now.
Hi, everyone. I am very happy today on this bright and sunny day to be chatting with Jackie Hermes, and can't wait to ask her tons and tons of questions. Jackie, how are you?
I am great. I took a sip of my water that exact moment. Good timing. How are you? I'm really excited.
I'm doing well. And now I'm taking a sip of my water, so clearly I was like yawning. Like I heard you say that and I was like, "Ooh, I want one."
We're killing it right at the beginning. Love it.
It's okay. I think people appreciate the realness.
Yes.
So, Jackie, how about we start by telling our listeners? I know you do a lot. You have a podcast, you're speaking, you have your own company, you have had other companies, but kind of tell our listeners a little bit about your background and what you're doing today.
Yeah. So let's see. I went to school for marketing, which, I like hardly use it now, but good to have the degree. I started at GE right after school and then went on to run marketing at a B2B software company. And while I was there, I started a cookie company, very random, and ran that for a few years. And then I started Accelity. We actually are celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year,
Wow,
which is
congrats.
crazy. So we do marketing and sales enablement for B2B software companies. Most of our clients are in health tech, insure tech, and similar complex and old industries.
So you said you went to school for marketing. That's interesting to me because I started going to school for marketing and then changed to finance.
Yeah.
Which now I don't use because more of what I do is marketing.
Yeah.
So it's like so weird how things happen. Anyway, I do want to talk about your first experience as an entrepreneur making or, building your cookie company.
Yeah.
Because why? Like, what made you start a cookie company?
Super valid question. I asked myself that many times. So actually, this is going to get personal real quick, but we're going to go for it. So
Love it.
My ex-husband, he wanted to go and get an MBA and focus on entrepreneurship. And then he came home one day and he was like, how about we just start a company? And I was like, okay, like, what does that mean? And he was like, well, I found these cookie recipes for sale on Craigslist in Buffalo, New York, and I want to buy them. It was like $7,000, I think, for the recipes, the brand, the packaging, the existing website. It wasn't much at all. But it was this restaurant owner who was selling her restaurant, but she always thought these cookies could be their own business, and she was never able to get it off the ground. And he was like, let's have a, like real world go at doing it instead of going to learn about entrepreneurship. And I was like, okay, like $7,000 is less than an MBA. I can get behind this. Well, I had
A lot
no,
less.
yeah, and I had no freaking clue how hard it was going to be, nor, I mean, I don't cook, I don't bake, I don't do any of that. So, and they were vegan. I was not vegan. I was like, all right, this is how I make decisions. Cool, let's give it a shot. So he flew out there, he learned how to make them, and we proceeded to like figure out how to build a company. We didn't get it very large, but we did get them into like 12 different bigger grocery stores around Wisconsin. And we figured out how to license them and how to get them produced and co-packed and distributed versus like at the beginning we were renting space in a bakery and making them at like midnight and packaging them and delivering them ourselves, which is insane. Like if a grocery
Wow.
store an hour and a half or 2 hours away orders, like 12 bags of cookies, which is not very much money, by the way, then we would drive up there and like be the demo people in the grocery store.
Ooh,
It was insane. It was like a crash course in entrepreneurship. So I'm glad I did it. And also, it was just difficult. Like selling a $5 bag of cookies is a lot different than selling a 6-figure marketing deal, which is what I'm doing now.
yeah. Very. And also, I wonder, I mean, it certainly, I'm sure, taught you a lot about the journey of starting a company, building it, scaling it,
Yeah.
going through all of these things that can use as you build something else. But what I was interested in exploring is how, like, when you were describing the cookies themselves, you're like, I don't cook.
No,
I wasn't vegan.
no.
Like, I was like, what that relationship is between you and what you sell.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, so these were no bake cookies. So they didn't really require tons of cooking. They were very easy to make. And actually, my ex husband did like most of the production.
Mhm.
And then we were vegetarians and then we tried to go vegan for a while. And I didn't realize exactly how hard it would be. Like
Oh god.
that at that age, I had a lot of friends that were like getting married or, like my social life was a lot more active at that time than it is now. And like you can't eat butter. You can't really eat anything. So I was like, I do not I do not want to do this. So I think that was part of the problem with that company is it was very much like it wasn't my idea, it wasn't my
Mhm.
baby, and it didn't vibe with really who I was. And it was also so hard to scale it that it was
Right.
like a little more than 2 years that we did it, and it was painful. And it's really hard to do. I was finishing my MBA, I was working full time, I had a
Oof.
baby,
Oh,
and
geez.
yeah, it was just like, this is too much. I need to think through before I say, I mean, now I think a lot harder before I say yes to things. But at the time, I remember standing in our kitchen and being like, all right, and for this pitch, he like had ordered the cookies and had them ready to try. And he's like, I can get out to Buffalo for this amount, and here are the cookies, and it's cheaper than an MBA. And I was like, okay, all of this makes sense, right? But in hindsight,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it again.
It's so interesting. Like, I feel like as an entrepreneur, you have to love what you're doing.
Yeah,
Like, you have to put everything in it. And wow, hats off to you because all the things you said you were doing at the same time,
it was
MBA,
insane.
work, baby, and this.
Yeah.
I mean, each of those are a full-time
I
job.
know it was silly, honestly, but I'm really glad that I did it because I learned so much about myself and the hard work that it requires to get a company off the ground and all of that good stuff. And, I think you have to really like what you do and you're not always going to love it. Like there were days that I was like, this is cool. And then there were more days where I was like, oh, I don't want to do
That's
this.
true.
Yeah. And
That's
and even in my business right now, most of the time I really like it. And sometimes I'm like, oh, why me?
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
I get that a lot. But you're invested in it,
for sure.
right? Like, even the crappy stuff, you're like doing it for something that is bigger, like
Absolutely.
that you actually care about.
Yes. And especially once you start employing people, I would say.
Yes. That makes a huge difference
Yes,
too. You're
absolutely.
thinking for a group.
Hmm.
Ugh. Um, love it and hate it at the same time.
Yeah. I hear that.
So I was reading on your website, and I have to say, first, I love your about you because it is the most honest about me I've read. Like, just pretty much of like, I started this cookie thing, wasn't great, learned a lot.
Yeah.
But the fact that you talk about it's just one sentence, but you would quit your job when you had two clients.
Yep.
And then, within weeks, we're looking into bartending and driving Uber. Like, that's real. Like, that's what happens sometimes when you take a risk.
Yeah. Exactly. You have to be willing to do what it takes to deal with the result of your decision, even if it's bad.
Well, it wasn't a bad decision in the end.
No, no. It definitely wasn't, but it seemed like it might have been at the beginning.
How do you get over that fear, though?
Who? That's a good question. I think that I am so stubborn, and stubborn really is a bad word, but
Mm.
it has a bad connotation. In this case, I'm so stubborn that I didn't want to fail, right? And I was like,
Mm.
I know there's no way I can quit now. I think that all the time, even when I still 10 years in, periodically consider like, should I sell, or is there something else that I want to do? And I usually have those thoughts when it gets hard, and then I always tell myself, why in the world would you quit now? So I had
Mm.
those same thoughts at the beginning. I just had enough on my plate that I couldn't quite focus enough on any of the things that I was doing, and I was like, I have to quit my job. And then a
Mm.
client that I was working maybe 20 hours a week for, about, brought the work in house, and it was so soon after I quit my job, but it was like, it's way too early to quit or to be so scared. But there were a lot of days where I was terrified, just sitting at my dining room table, wondering how I was going to pay the bills. But I also knew that I could get through it. And I think all of us, when we look back on our lives and think through all the hard things we've been through and what it felt like to get through it, you just have to continue reminding yourself, I can get through this. I've done this before, even though you haven't done this exact thing before, but I've done hard things and I have come out the other side. And I also, I mean, I didn't really have a safety net, but I kind of knew, like I had support from my mom. She probably let us
Mhm.
move in with her for a little while
Mhm.
if we needed to and whatnot. So I don't know. I just tried not to look at all of the bad things that could happen and focus on the potential good in the future.
I mean, considering you were doing both I'm never going to call it a side hustle because I hate that phrase, but doing what became your company and your normal job like that, I can see how there's a moment where you have to say, where is my attention going?
Right. Well, and if your normal job is the main thing that's paying the bills and
Right.
you're not giving it everything you need to. Now, I don't want to say giving it your all because I don't think that people should be required to dedicate their entire lives to a company and work all day and all night. However, you do have to be performing up to the standards and requirements of the job. And if
Yep.
you start questioning whether you can or your attention is so split that you're not, then I think you have to do yourself a favor and you have to do them a favor and figure out. There are a lot of companies, like we have had people go part-time as they're transitioning into the company that they're working in, or people that have started their own business and come back and freelanced. Like, great, good, good for you. I'm totally all about that. But I do think that you have to be honest with yourself. And there's a point where, you don't want to create a situation where your employer is unhappy because you're not meeting the standards of your role.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. So I do want to ask you a lot about the work that you're doing, and I have so many questions about B2B sales because it's to me and B2B marketing because it's an area where I know very little
Yeah.
of. So I'm just very curious about it. But before that, you mentioned, kind of that journey. If you could go back and see Jackie, back before you started 8 years ago, sitting in that dining room table, what advice would you have given her?
Ooh, I would have started focusing on my mental health and taking care of myself earlier because it is, I think a lot of people sacrifice themselves mentally and physically to grow a company, and then you're just kind of screwed.
Yeah.
You can't show up well in any area of your life. And it was probably around the time I started getting divorced that I really started looking inward and saying, like, in my personal life, like, what part of this is my responsibility? What did I do? What do I need to make amends for? And in my professional life, like, where can I get better? And I realized that by running myself ragged and being booked, every night with events and speaking and all of this different kind of stuff, I just wasn't serving my main goal, which was the company, growing the company
Mm.
and making sure that my employees are really happy and that they love the work that they do. So once I started like looking inward and just analyzing, I analyze everything I do and think, like, what does this look like from someone else's perspective? And is it giving the message that I want it to, and making sure that I'm communicating really well and appropriately? So yeah, that's probably, I could go down a large rabbit hole, but that's my best advice.
That's thank you for sharing that. I think we take for granted our own mental health
Yeah.
and how much we can give. We're not super people,
No, and
right?
everyone likes to think that they are. I still find myself all the time like, okay,
I
I
do
have
this.
these 5 friends that I want to check in on, and I want a social life, and I want to travel, and it's like, if I
Hmm.
book all of that stuff into my schedule by the time I'm done, like we just got back from a trip and I'm like, I'm tired. I need to slow down a little bit and just give myself some grace and some time.
Well, that is good advice. Give yourself grace and time. I can send you an email with that reminder.
I love it. I need it.
So, okay, build Accelity, and now tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea of like specifically doing a B2B marketing agency.
Yeah, well, it's what I was doing before.
And you
Actually,
were doing it also kind of both in your work and for like other clients.
yeah, exactly. So someone reached out to me that is looking at, she's in college and she's looking at starting a company, and she's like, "Where'd the idea come from?" And we had a conversation about how it's easy to come up with the idea when you're basing a company on your own skills, and it's hard to scale, teach other people, so it's like I knew it was something that I liked and that I was passionate about,
Mm.
but there are other pitfalls of creating companies that are based on your own skills, especially if you're not doing all the work.
Yeah, service-based companies are pretty hard.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say are the most important things whenever you're in the B2B marketing space? Like I said, I end up doing kind of marketing, kind of being a little bit of a generalist and nerd, but I've never really focused on B2B. So I'm kind of curious, like what makes something successful in that space?
I think that, well, most of our clients are selling, like I said, into these old industries, and
Hmm.
the sales that they're trying to make are really expensive. They take a long time, and they're trying to sell to people that are busy. So, for example, if we're helping market a health tech business and they're selling to physicians, well, they are
Yeah, that's
very, very hard to get a hold of, to get. So you have to be really creative. You have to be really
mm,
concise. Your message has to be really clear, and you have to reach them from all angles. And so I think as another thing in a lot of these industries, all the marketing looks the same. Like all SaaS companies are blue, and they all have the
yes,
same message where they create efficiencies and blah blah blah. You have to look different, right? And so that's a big part of what we do, is just our head of client services calls it taking the boring out of B2B, or she calls it B2 boring.
ooh.
And I love that, and I think that makes our work just look so different than what a lot of other agencies deliver in the space.
Uh, I like that a lot because it's true. You kind of see. I could imagine. I mean, I'm not familiar with the space, but I can imagine it just from our perspective. And we do sell to companies. Uh, every time I would see some of the stuff that we would put together for companies, I'd be like, why does it feel so corporate-y? I don't
Mhm.
know.
Corporate, very corporate. That's something we're trying to move away from and just make it a little more fun. And if your clients are willing to take the risks with you, it can really pay dividends because it looks so different. Especially in these really competitive markets like insure tech and health tech, both markets are just have tons of investment and money being dumped in them over the last few years. So that means
Mhm.
it gets more and more competitive and it gets harder and harder for us to be deemed good at our job. So we have to continue evolving all the time.
That's interesting. How do you make sure that you're doing that? Like, how do you make sure that you're staying fresh?
Yeah, we do lots of internal trainings and research and best practice sharing. I mean, our copywriter gets all of her copy best practices from watching copywriting TikTok, which I was like, I didn't even know.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't even know that's a thing. But I
Neither did
think
I.
I think you have to really have a learning mentality because marketing
Mhm.
is absolutely not something that you learn once. I mean, I learned it
Oh, yeah.
once in college and then applied hardly any of it because it changes so quickly.
Right.
So I think you have to have a culture of, I hate saying a culture of innovation, but that's, you have to have a culture of change, I guess, and people that are okay that things are going to change all the time and we are going to roll with it and we're going to work together to figure it out.
That's my favorite environment. Some
Yeah.
people I think are made for that environment. A lot of people are not. And you
Yes.
just have to know it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Copywriting TikTok. I am so going to look into that.
Yeah, she sends them all the time. And I'm like, I had a TikTok account for a while and was posting and working on growing. And then I was like, I don't know if I really like this very much. So no, I don't even have a TikTok anymore. Well, it's still there, but I don't go on it because I will waste half my day if I'm given the
Yeah,
opportunity.
same, same. However, you are pretty big on LinkedIn. Is that where you've kind of built your own personal brand?
Yeah, for sure. And then building my website and the podcast. Like I think it's important to make sure you can have a personal brand on any social, right? But you have to
Right.
move them into something that you own. So like an email list or your podcast and podcast listeners so that I'm not relying on LinkedIn because
Yeah.
algorithms change all the time. One of my girlfriends is a personal trainer and she has her own like app and subscription and she was a fitness influencer way back on Facebook. And then they throttled all of the views, and she had like over 1 million followers on Facebook, and her
Oh
business
my
died
God.
in like a day. So
Oh,
that is
wow.
a cautionary tale of, if you rely heavily on a social site to run your business and you're not moving anyone off, I mean, that is probably like the most poorly that it can end, but it can end pretty poorly.
Well, that is a very good cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And, it's it's interesting because I do talk to people who are kind of influencers when I'm on this podcast, and I always ask like, "Okay, so how do you go and start building something?" But not I've never heard someone say that part
Yeah.
of you yes, use social media to build, but also make sure that you are bringing it full circle.
Yeah, you have to. Like, I have clients ask all the time, should we be running a LinkedIn newsletter? And it's like, you certainly can, but then LinkedIn continues to own your data. Why not create
Mhm.
your own newsletter that you're also publishing on LinkedIn? So you're getting the amplification of the content. The content that appears on LinkedIn has really great, especially their articles, they appear in SEO all the time. But you have to move people to your email list so that if something happens with LinkedIn or one day your views get throttled, which has happened to me so many times over the last few years, then you still have a way to reach people.
Yeah. Um, I just thought about this question as I continue to think about TikTok TikTok copywriting. What do you think how is this area that we're talking about, marketing, brand building, um, going to change, particularly as we see, chat GPT, much more AI. Like, I still believe that there's always going to need, you'd always need that human to human
Yeah.
But how do you think it's gonna influence, particularly on the B2B side?
Yeah, we have a few clients that have AI in their software products, and we try to market them more as augmented intelligence than artificial intelligence, where it augments your job and it makes it faster and simpler to do, but it's not a replacement. I think that the term AI still freaks people out, especially that
Mhm.
letter that like the powers that be in tech just came out with that was like, we need to slow down and think about this.
Mhm.
um, but the things like that, I think, really scare people. Now, I also know that AI can be used to really simplify our job. So, for example, we only have one full time copywriter on our team, and she is using AI all the time. She made a joke the other day. What did she say? Um, when Grammarly tells me that something that Chat GPT wrote is grammatically incorrect, I have to make the decision of which of my robots to listen to. And I was like, wow, I the fact that that is what her role is. She's just able to do a little bit higher volume of work,
Yep.
but it doesn't just do it for you, right? But
Right.
she uses it for prompts for writing hooks and doing different, because especially in copywriting, you're writing for so many different audiences and so many
Mhm.
different kinds of writing. Long form sales copy, email, subject lines are different than what goes in an email. It's just a completely different ballgame. So I definitely think it's going to help, but I am not concerned about replacing at all.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's going to. I mean, it's going to change how we learn. Like what people need to learn is going to be different because you're going to need to learn how to work with these tools. But
Right.
that's always what happens with new tools.
Right. Yeah. We're a HubSpot partner, and they just came out with two new AI based tools. So we have a couple of the people on our team that are researching exactly how we should be incorporating these tools into our workflows. And I think just
Mm.
making sure that when stuff like this is happening, we don't jump on every new trend. But when
Right.
it looks like a trend is going to stay, then we want to make sure that we are an earlier adopter. So, like with these HubSpot tools.
Yeah, particularly because you're going to be using those for your clients. You want to be able to lead the way in a way.
Right. Yeah,
Lead the way
exactly.
in a way. Anyway. Well, thank you, Jackie. This was lots of fun. We did cover quite a bit.
Yes, I loved covering I feel like this is how I hang out with my friends. Just any old topic that we can come up with, which I mean, this was a lot more. Like we had brunch last weekend and we were talking about like aggressive squirrels in the neighborhood and Web3 and marketing and growing a star. It's like
I feel like
all.
I want to go to that brunch.
It was so fun, so fun. We were all crying, laughing just about the most ridiculous things. But you give me any topic, and I'm like, I can come up with something to talk about with this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is my guilty part of my guilty pleasure of the podcast because I just use it to meet cool people and just, have a fun conversation.
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm happy that we were able to do this. And we would not be the Elevate podcast without start finishing off with our little lightning round. So you ready?
Yes. You know what? I'm looking at these questions right now, and I was like, ooh, I probably should have read through these a little more closely before, but here we
Yeah.
go. Here goes
It's
nothing.
all that's the whole point of these. These are just fun questions. I might even throw some that are not in there.
Oh,
So
all right. Let's do it.
maybe I'll go rogue. If you could time travel, where is the first place you would go?
Honestly, I think I would go to my mom's childhood just because it was so different. I hear her
Mm.
talking about all of the things that they used to do and the freedoms that they had because there was no real technology. I would be so fascinated to see what that was like.
Yeah, that's a good one. Uh, would you rather explore outer space or the bottom of the ocean?
I think outer space, I was just talking to my husband, like, do you think we'll ever get the opportunity to go to space? The bottom of the ocean kind of freaks me out for some
Yeah.
reason. Like, there's a lot of scary looking things down there.
Yeah, I love swimming in the ocean, and therefore I really don't want to know what's all the way down there.
Yeah, I feel like I would never want to step foot in the ocean again.
Right. Most used app on your phone.
Probably Todoist, which is the dorkiest answer ever, but I love my to-do list.
I'm old school with my to-do list. It's on paper.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I'm always writing and then moving into Todoist. I really just have it in the app so that I can see it anywhere I go because I like
Anywhere.
to work wherever and who
It's
knows?
definitely more convenient.
Yeah.
Favorite recent read?
I've been reading a lot of fiction lately.
Ooh,
I don't know. Can I come up with any of the names of
fiction is great.
I mean, I feel like I can't come up with Things We Do in the Dark. I swear to God, half of these books have very similar titles.
Yes, they do.
And so my mom is a huge fiction reader, and then the ones that she deems good, she gives to me, and then she's always like, "Did you read that book yet?" And so once I pick up a fiction book, I'll read it for like 3 to 5 days straight until it's done. I mean, clearly I'm working, but when I'm not, I'm like, "Oh, I need to go read that book." So it's great because it gives your brain a little bit of a break. When I'm not incorporating fiction, it's a lot harder for me to get through the business reads that I want to tackle.
Is this I literally am looking it up. Is it good? Because this looks right up my alley.
I I'm trying to remember which one it is. Yes, all of the ones that I've read lately have been pretty good. In 5 Years is
Okay.
more romancy. I like the twisty, turny, and
Yeah, me too.
devastating fiction. I really, really like. Like if a fiction book can give me a few tears, I'm into it, which sounds odd, but it's true.
I, however, do agree with you. Like, I need to have some fiction and some light fiction. I'm not the one to go crying. I need some light crime thriller-y type
Mm,
fiction
mhm.
every night. Like every night.
Yeah, the few of the ones that I've been reading lately had crime podcasts featured in them, which was very weird. It was like 2 back to back, but then it started me on thinking maybe I needed to listen to some crime podcasts, but that was a little too far for me.
Oh, I'm a huge crime podcast fan.
Really?
I'm like so basic.
It
Yeah.
it free it they started freaking me out, and then I was having dreams about this stuff because my dreams are so vivid, and I was like, "Okay, I don't wanna be waking up horrified in the middle of the night, so I'm gonna stop this now."
Fair, fair, fair. And I also just read one about that had a crime podcast actually. Um in a book
What was
that
it?
I can't remember what it was
See,
called.
I swear they all are like the things blah, blah,
But
blah.
it's she goes back to her old school, like her old high school to teach something, and she starts like thinking about a murder that happened while she was there in high school.
Is it the one that they just made the Mila Kunis movie about?
It might be.
If it is, that movie's on Netflix. I read that and it was or I read it, I watched it and it was really good.
I don't know. I'll check it out. Um, Wait, I'm like now going in different tabs looking up podcasts and books. That's not what I should be doing. Okay,
Luckiest Girl Alive is the
I haven't
movie.
seen that one.
Yeah, check it out. It's like the movie version of the books we like to read.
Ooh, perfect. I know what I'm doing tonight.
Love it.
What is a skill you wish you had?
Ooh, a few years ago, I was working on my pilot's license, and then COVID hit. My dad is a pilot, and I really, really would like to be able to fly. And I'm
That's
waiting.
really cool.
Yeah, I'm waiting to pick it back up when I have quote unquote time, which means I should probably just do it because I'll never have time.
Yep. Best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Hmm. Let's see. I mean, probably like working on yourself, your mindset, and taking care of yourself, like we talked about a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
Also, my business coach gives me advice all the time about just being really on top of the financials of your business. And I think that piece of business can be scary for some people because
Mhm.
especially like I'm a creative, I don't consider myself a super strong numbers person, and that I think adds layers of fear, but she really forces me to stay on top of it and look forward, and it's kept us out of a lot of hairy situations.
That's good. It's great. Finally, what's one thought you'd want to leave with our listeners?
I think that, man, if you're thinking about doing something or you're trying to make a decision, my answer is always to start. I think the best way to learn something is to do it. And I meet a lot of people that are like, I've been thinking about starting a business for 5 years. And it's like, do it. Get a client, or, put together an MVP of your product, or whatever it may be. But if you are thinking about something and you can't get it out of your head, just start. Find a small way to start.
I think that's great advice. And honestly, I am going to try and take that too, because I'm one of those people.
Yeah, I am on the other side where I start really fast. So somewhere in the middle is probably the best way to do it.
Well, thank you, Jackie. This has been fun.
Yes, it's been so great chatting with you. I really appreciate it.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. So much fun. Love her. Love that interview. And of course, we have to end with what we always end with, which are our history makers. So let's get into who made some history in the past few weeks. So Olivia Chow became the first Chinese Canadian elected mayor of Toronto. Colleen Shogan became the first woman appointed U.S. National Archivist. I have a soft spot for this because my dad used to work at the U.S. National Archives, so this was very exciting to see. Hannah Dingley became the first woman manager in English Football League history. Karen Georgia Thompson became the first woman of African descent to lead the United Church of Christ. Jessal Tonk became the first Indian housewife on The Real Housewives of New York City. And Ariel Bonilla became the first woman and first Latina captain of the Perth Amboy Fire Department. Congratulations to all of our history makers, and don't forget to tune in again next week. Next week, we will be talking to Veronica Matthews, who's a leadership coach who empowers leaders to identify and operate their leadership genius so that they can achieve the personal and professional results they desire. She's also a corporate trainer, an author, a public speaker, an Ellevate member. She's fabulous. You're going to love her. We all do. Can't wait to see you then. Ellevate Network drives real results for ambitious women trying to break through the glass ceiling and achieve success in their careers. We offer a platform full of resources and opportunities for growth, all designed to help you unlock your potential. With Ellevate support, you can take the first step toward achieving your professional goals. With a supportive community and tangible resources at your fingertips, you're only one step away from reaching your fullest potential. Join us today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial to start building the career of your dreams. Thanks so much for listening to the Ellevate podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share your review. You can learn all about Ellevate membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Catherine Heller. She rocks. Thanks so much, and join us next week.